Welcome to Studio 58A Live here at the Jamaica Information Service, our discussion program coming to you live on Facebook. I'm your host, Vaughn Davis. Thank you to everyone tuning in from wherever you are around the world. We really do appreciate it. Thank you very much for your eyes. And like how we have your attention, do us a favor now. Share this video with a friend or 2 or 500 so you can have a very lively discussion. And as you watch, remember to send in your questions and your comments so we can have a very lively discussion. Put the questions to our guests, get answers that you need. All right? Now, at home in Jamaica here and in the diaspora, there are no shortages of people who want to help improve the social conditions of our most vulnerable people, our poor, our elderly, our children, and the disabled. After doing small and medium-sized projects here and there, many have been moved to start charities. So to make their activities more formal and benefit from some of the advantages that come with being an official charity. We are here today to outline the process for doing so and help those of you who are interested, especially people in the diaspora, to go about the process the right way and avoid some of the pitfalls that we have heard about, like having equipment on the wharves for years unable to be cleared because they weren't established as goods for a charity. To help us do this today, we have in studio Director of Research, Policy, Training and Development at the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies, the lovely Miss Paulette Kirkland. Welcome, Ms. Kirkland.
Thank you so very much for having me.
All right, Ms. Kirkland, let's begin at the beginning. What exactly is established as how do we define a charity under Jamaican law?
Wow. Well, a charity is an organization that is established exclusively as per the Act. Now, I'm using the terminology in the Act for charitable purposes, and it has no part of its net income or assets inuring to the personal benefit of any body governing board member or settler of the organization or any private individual.
So we like
but
to
in the layman's term
in the
now,
layman terms, what does that mean?
it is an organization that is established to give back. And you have your widow's mite, and you give back your widow's mite, but you have a group of us, so me, you, Vaughn, and Jennifer decided that we want to do a feeding program, which that's not allowable under the new Act with the KCC.
We can get into that a little
but
later.
We're not going to get into that right now.
Right.
But so let us say we want to do an education program where we want to do back to school once per year. And then that's how we started, because we saw the need in a particular community that we had. And we've been doing it out of our pockets. And as we go, we are saying we want to invite some more of our friends. We want to invite Corporate Jamaica to be a part of our program. So you see how it starts to mushroom. Now, the first thing that corporate is going to ask you, are you registered? And you're like, registered? No, we're just doing this together. So you have the will to give back. You have some resources you want to give back, but you need others. So how do you go about doing it in the right way?
Right.
And that is what the Charities Act of 2013 sought to do. Because in the past, persons would get a waiver from education, a waiver from tourism, a waiver from finance, and the waivers held and went on. And there was no structured way of assessing the value.
Right.
Because it is also important that we establish the value of what people give back.
Right. So we can't just have people here, there, and everywhere getting a little thing here, a little thing there. We need to create some farmers framework so that persons can go through it and we can have a little more accountability in the process.
And then the government can say that the diaspora has contributed this to the social fabric. They have helped in this way, so it has reduced government spending in health, it has reduced government spending in education and social interventions. And if you do it in a structured way, then the stories that some may say are horror stories about persons collecting on behalf of and not reaching the intended recipients, that we can reduce those type of horror stories. So that
just to be clear, it's essentially an organization with a group of people whose sole purpose is to enhance, I guess, the public good or further the public good. And it specifically persons, the goals are any financial thing is not going towards any of the members. There's no profit. There's
no profit coming back to the persons who are sitting on the board and who have formed the organization. But because I wanted to break it down so the layman could understand.
Definitely.
But that's, yes, as I read.
Let me just I know that there can be some similarities, but is there a difference, for example, between a non-profit organization and a charity under the law, just to be clear?
All right. So a non-profit organization is registered and does charitable work. When you're deemed to be a charity is now when you apply for charity status under the law. And it's so, whilst the non-profit is doing the charities work, it does not have charitable status.
Okay.
So that is the difference really under the law, in that now you would have applied under the Charities Act to get that charitable status.
All right. So let's get into the process itself for starting and getting a charity up and running in Jamaica. We've come together, me, you, we say, we want to start a feeding program for the homeless in our community or somewhere. We say, all right, we're going to make this official. Where do we go? What do we do? How do we get started?
All right. So we would need to know what it is our objects. Really, so is to assist the less fortunate is the main objective. And then, so that's the object. And then we would need to know how we're going to do what they call the powers. And so we would sit and decide on that. Because the Charities Act provides for incorporated as well as unincorporated entities. So some person says, we have to go get registered. No. Once you have a constitution that guides your operations, and it's signed off on by us, we agree that this is the binding documents. They are assessed and found to meet what we love to call the litmus test under the Charities Act, then you can be registered. So what you need to be registered now, you need a constitution, a bylaws. Some persons are by act of parliament. Some persons are by assent. Some persons are by registration of their legal documents at the at the company's office.
Yeah.
Some have it lodged at the RGD. So there are various types of way you have your constitutive document. But you must have constitutive document.
Right. You can. I mean, it's important to have the things that kind of outline what you do, how you go about doing it, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I guess basically you need to show a little documentation so people can have a little paper trail so you look official. Because anybody can just come together and say we're a charity, and
so
you
let us
should get
not
this
say
and
look
the third.
official, but you know what it also does? It guides us as to how we operate.
Okay.
Because if we have nothing to guide us how we operate, and we leave the organization and some other persons come on, then where is the continuity? Where is the consistency to standards? So it is a guide as to our operations, and that's how I like to tell people, look at it like that. It's not for us, it's for you.
All right.
So you have those constitutive documents. You have to fill out an application form. And the application form, you'd list what your objects and your powers are. Then there are what we call the board, or the persons who, like you and I, they have to fill out what we call the fit and proper. Because the Charities Act is very particular in that persons must be fit and proper to serve on the board. And you fill out that questionnaire. You also would submit your constitutive documents, and very, very important, because you are going to be getting waivers from tax and so on and so forth. You have to be registered in the system now. And what is that registration? The TRN number. So you have to have a TRN number, because the tax admin office, who is a part of the registration process, they work by the number. So when we send an application for processing there, and there's no TRN number assigned, it's going to get bounced.
Right.
So those are really the 4 pieces of document for a new entity. If you're an ongoing entity, then we need your financials.
So we need to know what's going on, how are you getting your funds in, how are you putting it together, how are you spending it, basically accountability.
Right. And so those are really the documents that you need for us to assess. But what you also need to submit to make the process easier for you is what we call a signature document of those persons who are authorized to transact. Again, we are putting in the checks and balances.
Right.
Because it is what it is, and sometimes persons get a hold of your certificate and they use it. Now, if when they go to the customs, those signatures are not online, those persons can't access
right.
any of the reliefs or the benefits that the organization would be getting. So we need that signature document in the pre-registration process. And if you're having an agent who you're saying, because we have organizations that majority of the persons are residing overseas and they have a local agent, then that local agent, there has to be that authorization from the organization that this person is authorized to transact business on behalf of the organization.
So just to be clear, for example, we need to have our documents, our basically the
constitutive documents.
The constitutive documents. You need to get your TRN and that kind of information sorted out together. You need to establish who are your, I guess we'd say, executive, and those are those who are allowed to transact business with the government or so on behalf of the charity.
Right.
So that you have those persons, those necessary and important persons, so that they can conduct the business and get the benefits.
Right, and they have to fill out a fit and proper questionnaire.
Right. What would be on that fit and proper questionnaire?
Your name, your address, your TRN, where you have worked. Are you involved in any other organization, volunteer or economically? Have you ever been convicted of any offense under the laws? Is your organization tax compliant? Do you have any beneficiaries? And those type of questions that are there.
All right, lovely. Let me just show some love to the persons who are joining us online. Let's say a good morning or a good day to Carlene Mendez. Thank you, Carlene, for tuning in. Jermaine Jackass, I appreciate your eyes, Jermaine. Thank you so much for joining us. Beverly Jeffers, thank you so much, Beverly. Really do appreciate that. Candice Christine, wonderful. Thank you for your question, Candice. She's asking, how long does the process take for a group to become an official charity?
All right. So the process, the timeline that we have is 30 days, and that can be less, dependent on if you have all the things that are there. What is the usual one that delays the process is that the objects and powers are not in keeping with the 14 areas under Schedule 1 of the Charities Act. And if they're not in keeping with that, then
you have to go back and refix and all kind of things.
That's right. And that's usually the problem that holds it up. We've had turnaround time of 10 working days.
All right, wonderful.
So it's dependent on your preparedness.
So there you have it, people.
Yes.
Ms. Kirkland is saying, once you have your ducks in or once you have your I's dotted and your T's crossed, it shouldn't take very long at all. Big up to Mr. Ricardo Porteous joining us, a regular viewer. Thank you, Ricardo. Really appreciate your eyes. Thank you again. Now, let's get to the part that I'm pretty sure everybody wants to know about. How do we benefit? What are some of the benefits that you get from being a registered charity?
I usually like to not put that part out there, you know.
Well, we have to because people want to know. It's one of the things that comes with challenges.
I'm just going to say the areas of the tax that you're exempt from.
Okay.
And I don't have it in my head, so I'm going to be reading it.
We'd much rather have you read the accurate thing from the book than wing it, right?
And so there is an exemption from several taxes under the law, and it's at the 3rd schedule of the Charities Act.
Right.
It's exemption from some duties and fees under the customs, and I'm wanting to be very specific. Some,
not all. Some.
Right?
Okay.
So we have to understand that not because we're a charity we're exempt from everything.
So there are some fees that you will have to pay. There's no write-off completely.
No, not at all. Then there is the GCT that there is the exemption from. The Income Tax Act, there is also provision under that one, but the tax are the ones that are the expert on that, tax admin office, but there is that. The Property Tax Act, the Stamp Duty Act, and the Transfer Tax Act. And also charities get exemption under the minimum business tax and the asset tax, which those things were mentioned by the Honorable Minister earlier on this year about the minimum business tax and the asset tax based on how they have been doing their calculations for us to benefit as Jamaicans.
All right. Now, I want to ask, in terms of registration, how long is a charity registered for? I mean, I understand that it's not a process that you're a charity and once you achieve the registration, you're a charity in perpetuity and forever until thy kingdom come. It's a process that sometimes may require renewal.
All right. So, again, you would let us say you're registered at the company's office as a not-for-profit organization, an NPO, and then you seek registered charity status. So I'm speaking to your registered charity status, not your registration at the company's office. That's a 2-year process for most organizations, and it's renewable every 2 years. There are some special cases that may get a lesser time because of whatever nuances we are trying to manage and monitor. But the standard timeline is 2 years.
All right. And then there's a
renewal
process, right?
The renewal process, I'd like to say, is fairly easy also. But for me, everybody else, everything is fairly easy for you because you're in the process.
Right.
But what we have set up is a structure wherein you can seek to start the renewal process 2 months before your certificate expires. And with that, you have to submit an annual returns form, which is a Form 8. You also need to submit your financials, audited financials. If there is any change in your constitutive document, those you will have to submit.
Submit those as well so the person can be abreast of what's going on.
Right. And then those things are assessed. And once everything is in keeping with as before, because once you're registered, one of the things that you need to do is to maintain the status you had at the time of registration in order to have renewal.
All right. So it begs the question for me, you mentioned it before, you touched on it briefly in terms of there are different types of charity or different levels of charity, if you will.
There are different types of charities, and we've been doing some research, and I'll tell you the sectors that they fall under. There are those for the prevention and relief of poverty. There are those for the religious. There are the educational ones. They are social fraternal, and the social fraternal can be service organization, community organizations. There are those that are established for arts and culture. There are those that are established for health, sports, and animal welfare.
Okay.
So we have educational organizations. We have the churches that have to get their reliefs and waivers. There are the health ones, the sporting one, and that's a different type. Service club organizations also are registered. Alumni are registered. So we have different types.
Different types. I'll ask you a question. I'm just curious, are all churches charities, or do they have to apply for that status?
Every organization that wishes to have a regular registered charity status has to apply.
Right. So it's not
irrespective of where they sit. There are different waivers that they would get at different types. But for registered charity status, it's an application process that you have to go through.
So there's no automatic qualification. You don't just start an organization and you're automatically, on the fast track to being a charity. You have to apply like everybody else.
All right. So you do charity work?
Yes.
So you call yourself a charity?
Right.
But the difference is you don't have registered charity
that's what
status.
I mean. You have to get the registration.
You have to get that registered charity status because you're an MPO that does charity work, and you're good.
Right.
But you don't want to go, some people say it's an harassment to go through, you're only doing an activity once, you don't want to be registered, to be having an office, to be filing returns, and all of these things which they find as a bugbear. And then now that is where we say to you, if you're only doing an activity once per year, work through another charity that is registered. But let us know that you're working through this so we can monitor to ensure that where the things are intended or the service is intended to go, it is being used according to the purpose.
Yeah, that's a curious thing you mentioned, because I think a lot of persons feel like they have to go and try and seek the status so that they can, access the benefits to do the work that they want to do. So you're saying that there are ways people can partner with other registered ones.
Yes, they can. And we actually encourage that because we realize that if I'm only doing a back-to-school treat in the summer, and I'm going to be seeking to be registered, then I'm having to put myself in the space of having all the office activities, the persons who the audits will be done through, because audit is done by 3 organizations actually. The Charities Authority, Customs if you're bringing in things, and the tax. Tax can just select you for an audit. So I think it is sometimes better for us to work through an organization, but please advise the Charities Authority so we can help with the monitoring so that we can see that what it is intended for, it is actually the purpose that it is used for.
All right, so in terms of that now, how does that process work out for you from the department standpoint? Monitoring, is it done primarily through just observing their books, or do you actually go out and try and get a look-see and see what's going on with the work that they're doing?
We do visits. We do visits. We do site visits. We go to the person's office, but we can only do that if you've made us aware of the fact that you are working through this organization. So we do site visits.
All right, so we're here talking with Paulette Kirkland. She's from the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies. She's giving us the rundown on how to start a charity, how to achieve registered charity status, rather, so that you can access some of the benefits and other things that are related. If you have, your heart is leading you in a direction to do some charitable work and you want to be able to benefit from certain exemptions, some exemptions, not all.
Yes,
it's very important to make at pains to let you know that it's not every single thing you get exempt from.
That's correct.
But if you work with them, they can make life a whole lot easier for you, so that you can even partner with other registered charities and benefit from their kind of exemptions as well. But you have to let them know what you're doing. I mean, we all like to do things in silos sometimes, which is one of the disadvantages of charity work. See, if another person's duplicating the work of others. But if you get in contact, maybe they can, I suppose you can probably put them in contact with persons who might be doing similar work.
Right, and also the Charities Authority doesn't work in silo. It works with other key players of government. The Commissioner General, which is Tax Administration, it works with the Companies Office, because the registrar of charities now it's held on the Companies Office, and they are the ones who will show you whom are the registered entities. And Customs, we work very closely with Customs. We work also with the NIS office, because earlier on we spoke about the TRN, and people say, what an ordeal to get that TRN because I need a NIS. So we have developed a working relationship with the NIS office, where the applicants come to us and we prepare a letter and they take it to the NIS office in order to help them to get the TRN sorted out. So we really try to be all-encompassing and to treat with some of the challenges that we know to make it easier for the individuals.
All right, and if you're checking in our comments, ladies and gentlemen, you will find information about the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies. You can check out their website, check out their Facebook page, check out all that information. Ms. Kirkland has their information right here. Go ahead and tell people where they can find you.
All right, so our head office is at 2 Musgrave Avenue, and that's off Trafalgar Road. And we have office in Montego Bay, and we have an office in Mandeville.
All right. Tell us your website and your phone numbers as well.
All right. So for the head office, our numbers are 927-4912, 927-6572, or 978-1946. Our website is www.dcfsjamaica.org. DCFSJamaica.org. Get all information you need about starting a charity if you're so inclined, and you can get the rundown and all information that you need, which offices you need to go to, which person you need to get in contact with, so you can have a smooth process. And I would definitely, as Ms. Kirkland just said, talk to the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies. Maybe they can walk you through the process so you don't have the hair pulling out sensation that people tend to have, and then get turned off by it and decide they're not going bother, which we really don't want. If you have the heart for charity work, we really want you to come through, lend a helping hand, and develop the process, you know what I mean? Right, and as I said to you, we've had this portfolio since January 2014, because the Act was promulgated in 2013. And to date, as at mid-July, we've received 1,454 applications.
All right, so there are lots of persons. I'm sure those are all over the world, like in the diaspora as well.
Definitely, and I'm happy to say that our registration has not been too bad. The records have shown that we have registered approximately 800 plus near 900 of those entities at this time. So
I mean, that many people can't make that many people can't be wrong. Yeah, I mean, clearly it seems to be going in the right way, and people are appreciating the work being done, and they're able to get their charities registered. So,
right.
work is happening.
So we are doing our work, and we are meeting with our stakeholders. We are have also in the past couple of months gone through the process of reviewing the regulations that we're trying to get in place for the charities sector. We've had a breakfast session, edu forums, where we've sat with the members of some charities and advised them on pre-registration, post-registration, and how we intend to continue to assist them in being compliant with the law. So we seek to try and help out the best we can.
All right. So one other thing, as we kind of shift down a gear, in terms of overseas entities who want to come and work locally, they also have to get registered as well. Talk to me about that.
All right. So there is a process at the company's office that facilitates registration of overseas entities as locally registered entities that are seeking charities status. And what we found that presently our records reveal that we have 11 such type entities in relation to entities that are linked to overseas organizations.
Right.
So yes, there is also that type of a join-up approach to facilitating work as a charity.
All right. And they have to get registered before they can start working and doing activities in Jamaica. They can't just come through and just say, we're going to start, feeding the poor, for argument's sake. They have to come through and make contact with you guys first.
Well, the process of overseas entities coming into Jamaica to work entails not just being a charity, but the other things, the other permits that they would need. So I suppose if you're working with a church, though, and you come down with a church group, you can't just begin to work. But if you're wanting to set up your establishment and you want to employ people, then there are different things that you'd need to be doing to get that done. And I'm not the expert at speaking on that component. Okay. I'm just speaking about how you work as a charity.
All right. So, I mean, I guess that's another thing for another time. Yes, we can look into that. So other charities from America or Europe or other places around the world that want to come and do work in Jamaica, there's a little bit of a process that you have to follow first. But we can get into that another time. All right, Ms. Kirkland. So let's just recap once more. So when persons want to start, they've been moved, they've been led, they decided I'm going to start a charity. Where did they begin? Just recap for them what they need to get together so that they can get started and hit the ground running.
All right, so what do you need? You need to have your constitutive documents, and that is the document that says the what and the how. What I want to achieve and how I'm going to go about achieving it. So that's the objects and the powers.
Right.
And having had those constitutive documents, then if you want to go unregistered, then you would still have those lodged so that they can be signed off on. But if you're wanting to go register, then you go to the company's office and register the organization as an NPO. That having been done, you then would come to the department and fill out the application to become a registered charitable organization. So we'd have your constitutive document, the application form, the fit and proper questionnaire, and we would then have if you are registered, the certificate of registration. If you're a going concern, your financials audited or an income and expenditure statement signed by a certified accountant.
Right.
Once that is done, the application is accepted, and then comes the partnership with the department and the other government agencies, because we would then send the objects and powers or the constitutive documents and the financials to tax admin for they to do their
due diligence.
And I must state that if the tax admin object, we can't progress the registration.
So
that is where you have to go back to the drawing board again. Once we get a non-objection from the tax administration, which is called the Commissioner General in the Act, then we seek to ensure that all the other types of documentation are on. That is the signature form that is requiring of who are authorized, and if you're having an agent, then the agent form. And the entire file will be sent to the Registrar of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies for him to have the relevant documentation being prepared, and you come and collect your registration package.
All right, and don't forget you mentioned the fit and proper
questionnaire.
Just to entitle that. It's just to ensure that you are a person of good report and you're going to actually do what you say you're going to do.
Yes.
And as Ms. Kirkland mentioned, it's not a hassle if you want to partner with, if you are a charity or you are a group of people doing some work, and you can partner with registered charities to try and benefit from some of their benefits. Well, before I go even further, let me just rehash some of the benefits for the persons who what benefits you qualify for, right, as a registered charity.
You qualify for the reliefs of the custom, under the custom duties, some reliefs, and I'm emphasizing some again.
Right.
The GCT, the income tax, the property tax, the stamp duty, the transfer tax, the minimum business tax, and the asset tax.
All right, lovely. So I see, Wolipa exemptions. She says so, man. That sound like plenty to me. So hey, if you're really interested in doing charity work, and it's not just something you do once or twice a year or something, if it's something that's consistent and it's something that you and your friends, you and an organization feel like it's important, and you want to be doing this year round, it sounds like a good idea to get registered and acquire registered charity status, so you can benefit from these exemptions, so you can maximize the reach of your work and maximize the scope of the impact that you can make on the lives of the people that you're trying to change, right? And as Ms. Kirkland said, they'll come through, they'll lend you a helping hand, they'll walk you through so that they can make sure that you're actually doing the work that you say you are and doing it effectively.
Yes.
Right. So, it sounds like a great place to stop by, especially those in the diaspora. You can make contact with the Department of Cooperatives and Friendly Societies, so you can, lend a helping hand that you do the thing that has been on your heart for the longest while. Because we know there are many of you out there who really want to lend a helping hand. This is one of the best ways to go about finding out how to do so. All right, I'm going to leave the last word to you, Ms. Kirkland, just in terms of the work that the department is going on with and some of your objectives going forward.
Well, presently we are seeking to have the regulations being passed, because we figure that some persons are not as compliant as they ought to be, especially in relation to the filing of the returns the 31st of March. And that is an area that we are trying to ensure compliance. We are also looking at the risk of charities being used for terrorist financing or money laundering,
right.
And those are real risks that the department is having to assess in order to ensure that the systems and processes we set up will engage the charities and support Jamaica getting the proper rating that we know we can get on the international stage. We continue to do our educational forum. We do it in a join-up way with the Jamaica Customs Agency, the Companies Office of Jamaica, and Tax Admin. So we really work very closely together in doing that, and our officers are to be commended because we sometimes seek to, in helping, we are hearing that the Charities Authority said, especially when they don't get what they would want to have. And we have to be careful of that as an organization, but we continue to help, because at the heart of all we're doing is for the benefit of those who are less fortunate, and it is for Jamaica to be the place of choice.
Right, very much.
Thank you so very much for having us.
All right, so to Grace Jones online, she's loving the conversation, interesting and very informative. So thank you, Grace. Really appreciate that compliment, and I hope you tune into our next program. Valentino Roshane Anderson says, "Good day. Good day to you, Valentino. Appreciate your eyes. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen in." And thank you to everyone else who was sending questions and comments, especially Ricardo Porches was telling good afternoon, Miss Kirkland. So he was giving you a special.
Thank you very much, Ricardo.
All right, appreciate that. So it's time for us to wrap. Thank you to everyone who tuned into our discussion, especially those of you who sent in your questions and your comments. We really do appreciate them. And if you have a question or comment and you'd like to send in, go ahead. We will be going through afterwards, and we'll be able to get the answers and channel them to you. If needs be, we'll make contact with Ms. Kirkland, our representatives from the department, so we can get you the right information. And remember, our audience plays a major part in our show. If there's anyone in particular you'd like us to have in studio, let us know, and we'll try as best as possible to have that person in studio. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at Jamaica Information Service to see who will be in studio next. We do this every Thursday live on Facebook. I've been your host, Vaughn Davis, and this has been Studio 58A Live. Thank you again for joining us, and please have a wonderful day.